The autumn wind swept through the Kansas wheat fields like a whispered promise, carrying the scent of harvest and the weight of change. Anna Kowalski stood before the wooden counter of her family bakery, her flour-dusted apron a testament to generations of Polish baking traditions. The morning sun streamed through windows that had watched her knead countless loaves, each one a prayer for survival in this harsh frontier town. Her 3 children, 12-year-old Mika, 9-year-old Stefan, and 6-year-old little Katya played quietly in the back room, their laughter a fragile melody against the growing silence of an empty shop. The scent of yesterday's rye bread still lingered, but Anna knew it might be the last time these walls would witness the ancient ritual of flour transformed into sustenance. The brass bell above the door chimed with false cheer as Mr. Henderson entered, his dark suit and pressed collar marking him as distinctly different from the dusty farmers who usually graced her threshold. His leather satchel bulged with official papers, and Anna's heart sank like poorly risen dough as she recognized the weight of finality in his measured steps. "Mrs. Kowalski," he began, his voice carrying the practiced sympathy of a man who delivered bad news professionally. "I'm afraid the bank's decision is final." The words hung in the air like smoke from an overheated oven, acrid and suffocating. Behind her, she heard Mika's footsteps pause in the doorway, her eldest child's intuitive understanding that their world was about to crumble like die-old pastry. Anna's hands, strong from years of kneading and shaping dough, trembled as she wiped them on her apron, the familiar gesture now feeling like a farewell to everything she had built. The bakery had been more than a business, it was a continuation of her grandmother's legacy, the foundation of her children's security, and the only home they had known since her husband Joseph's death 2 winters past. "How long do we have?" she asked, her Polish accent thickening with emotion, as it always did in moments of stress. Henderson's reply came swift and merciless. 3 days, ma'am. The new owners take possession Monday morning." The children's voices had gone completely quiet in the back room, and Anna realized they understood, with the sharp clarity that hardship brings to young souls, that their childhood was ending in this moment. Before we continue, leave your like, share our story, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. The eviction notice crackled in Anna's grip like autumn leaves, its legal language transforming her sanctuary into a commodity to be seized and sold. The paper bore official seals and signatures that held more power than all her years of dawn risings, her careful tending of sourdough starters, her tireless work to keep food on tables throughout the community. As Henderson's footsteps faded on the wooden sidewalk, Anna sank onto the 3-legged stool, where she had taught Mika to braid, where Stefan had learned to count coins from the till, where baby Katya had taken her first wobbling steps between flour sacks. The silence that followed was deafening. No grinding of the coffee mill, no cheerful greetings of morning customers, no sizzle of fresh bread cooling on wooden racks. In that moment, Anna understood that more than a building was being lost. An entire way of life was slipping through her fingers, like the finest wheat flour, impossible to hold, impossible to reclaim. The letter from Matthew Sullivan had arrived 3 weeks earlier, his bold handwriting offering what seemed like Providence wrapped in formal politeness, seeking experienced cook for Golden Wheat Ranch. It had read, "Large operation requiring meals for 20 workers during harvest season. Housing provided. References required." Anna had kept the letter folded in her apron pocket, taking it out during quiet moments to trace the words with her fingertip, wondering if such an opportunity could be real, or merely the desperate fantasy of a woman watching her world dissolve. Now, as the weight of homelessness pressed down like lead, that letter felt like the only lifeline floating in a sea of impossible choices. She pulled it from her pocket once more, the paper, soft from handling, and read the address again, Golden Wheat Ranch, Millers Creek, Kansas, a place she had never seen, offering work she had never done, for a man she had never met. Evening shadows stretched long across the empty bakery as Anna gathered her children close, their faces pale with the understanding that everything familiar was about to disappear. Mika's dark eyes, so like her father's, held a premature gravity that broke Anna's heart, while Stefan clutched his carved wooden horse, Joseph's last gift against his chest-like armor. Little Katya curled into Anna's lap, her thumb finding its way to her mouth as it always did when the world felt too large and uncertain. "Mama," Mika whispered, her voice barely audible above the settling of old wood, "where will we go?" Anna smoothed her daughter's hair, the gesture automatic and comforting. while her mind wrestled with impossible calculations of hope and desperation. The letter from the ranch owner represented a leap into the unknown, but staying meant watching her children face a Kansas winter without shelter, without security, without the warm sanctuary that had always been their anchor in an uncertain world. The morning of their departure arrived, gray and cold, with frost painting delicate patterns on the bakery windows that Anna would never see again. She had sold what furniture she could, packed their few remaining possessions into 2 worn carpet bags, and a wooden crate that had once held imported vanilla from the East. The train ticket to Miller's Creek felt fragile as paper laced in her coat pocket, purchased with the last of her emergency savings, money that Joseph had insisted she hide behind loose bricks in the bakery's foundation. As Anna locked the door for the final time, the brass key seemed to weigh more than all their worldly possessions combined. Mika carried her mother's recipe book, its pages yellow with age and stained with the evidence of countless successful loaves, while Stefan and Katya each clutched small bundles that contained their entire childhood, reduced to what could be carried in small arms. Standing on the train platform with autumn wind cutting through their thin coats, Anna faced the most crucial decision of her life. Step aboard the westbound train toward an uncertain future, or retreat into the familiar poverty of staying in a town that no longer had room for them. The locomotive's whistle split the morning air like a challenge, its steam rising white and urgent against the pewter sky. Anna looked down at her children's upturned faces, seeing in their expressions the complete trust that only children can offer, the unquestioning faith that their mother would somehow make everything right. She thought of her grandmother's words, spoken long ago in a language that tasted of old-world wisdom. Sometimes, little bird, you must fly from the known nest to find where your wings can truly carry you. With that memory settling over her like a blessing, Anna lifted Katya into her arms, took the hands of her older children, and stepped onto the train that would carry them toward whatever new life awaited. At Golden Wheat Ranch, the train car smelled of coal smoke and unwashed travelers, its worn wooden seats creaking with each mile that carried them further from everything they had ever known. Anna watched the familiar landmarks of home disappear through the soot-stained window, the church spire where she had married Joseph, the schoolhouse where Mika had learned to read, the creek where all 3 children had spent summer afternoons catching minnows and building castles from smooth river stones. Each passing mile felt like a page torn from the book of their life together, and Anna wondered if she was brave or simply desperate, or perhaps, in their current circumstances, there was no difference between the two. The children dozed fitfully against her shoulders, their innocent sleep a sharp contrast to the wakeful anxiety that kept her spine rigid and her mind churning through endless scenarios of what they might find at journey's end. Miller's Creek proved to be less a town than a hopeful. The collection of buildings scattered along the railroad tracks like seeds cast by an uncertain hand. The station consisted of a single wooden platform, a weathered depot building, and a hand-painted sign that looked as if it had survived more storms than it had welcomed trains. Anna gathered her children and their meager belongings, stepping onto the platform with legs unsteady from hours of travel and hearts heavy with the magnitude of their leap into the unknown. A tall man in worn work clothes approached them, his hat pulled low against the afternoon sun, his presence both reassuring and intimidating in the vast emptiness of the Kansas prairie. "Mrs. Kowalski," he asked, his voice carrying the roughened gentleness of a man accustomed to coaxing cooperation from stubborn livestock and uncertain weather. Matthew Sullivan removed his hat as he introduced himself, revealing hair the color of wheat ready for harvest and eyes that held the patient steadiness Anna associated with men who understood the rhythms of seasons and the rewards of persistence. His hands, she noticed, bore the calluses and permanent stains of someone who worked alongside his employees, rather than simply directing their efforts from a distance. "I hope the journey wasn't too difficult," he said, his concern genuine, as he noted the children's pale faces and Anna's obvious exhaustion. When he offered to carry their bags to his wagon, Anna caught a glimpse of something unexpected in his manner. Not the rough authority she had expected from a ranch owner, but a careful courtesy that suggested he understood what it meant to be far from home and dependent on the kindness of strangers. As they loaded their belongings into the sturdy farm wagon, Anna realized that this man's letter might have been the answer to prayers she hadn't even known how to pray. Golden Wheat Ranch sprawled across the Kansas horizon like a promise written in earth and sky, its boundaries marked not by fences but by the subtle changes in how the land held itself, more deliberately tended, more purposefully arranged, more hopeful in its relationship with human ambition. The ranch house stood solid and welcoming against a backdrop of grain silos and outbuildings that spoke of prosperity, built through honest labor and careful stewardship. Anna felt her children straighten with curiosity as they approached the complex of buildings, their earlier exhaustion forgotten in the face of a new world that was larger and more organized than anything they had experienced in their small-town life. Matthew guided the wagon past corrals, where horses lifted their heads with mild interest, past fields where the last of the harvest gleamed golden in the late afternoon light, toward a house that would either become their sanctuary or simply another temporary stop in lives that had already known too much uncertainty. As the wagon wheels crunched to a halt before the ranch house porch, Anna whispered a prayer in Polish, the same words her grandmother had spoken when crossing the ocean toward America. Let this place have room for our hearts to grow. The ranch house kitchen exceeded Anna's most optimistic expectations. Its generous proportions and well-designed layout, speaking of someone who understood that feeding people was both practical necessity and profound act of care. Cast-iron stove dominated one wall like a benevolent giant, its surface scarred by years of service but maintained with the respect due to equipment that had never failed in its essential duties. Shelves lined the walls, most of them empty or holding only the basics of bachelor cooking, while windows on two sides promised morning light that would transform the space into something alive with possibility. Matthew showed them through the rooms with the awkward pride of a man unused to displaying his domestic arrangements, his explanations punctuated by apologies for dust and the general air of masculine neglect that hung over furniture chosen for durability rather than comfort. Anna's trained eye saw past the surface disorder to the fundamental soundness of the space, and she felt the first stirring of something that might, with patience and work, become hope. The workers' quarters buzzed with curious energy as word spread that the new cook had arrived with 3 children in tow, a development that added domestic complexity to what had previously been a straightforward arrangement of labor and compensation. Anna met them during the evening meal, 20 men whose faces bore the weathered marks of outdoor work and whose conversation revealed the casual camaraderie of people who had learned to depend on each other through seasons of unpredictable weather and demanding physical labor. Their initial politeness toward Anna carried undertones of skeptical reservation, the natural wariness of men who had been disappointed by previous attempts to improve their living conditions. But when little Katya smiled shyly from behind Anna's skirts and Stefan offered to help carry water buckets, Anna noticed the subtle softening that children could bring to the hardest hearts. These men, she realized, might have come to the ranch seeking only wages and shelter, but they had stayed long enough to become something approaching a family, rough, practical, and bound together by shared purpose. Anna's first breakfast at Golden Wheat Ranch began before dawn with the familiar ritual of building fire in an unfamiliar stove, her hands moving through motions made automatic by years of early mornings and hungry mouths to feed. The pantry held basic supplies: flour, salt, bacon, eggs, coffee, but lacked the subtle touches that transformed mere sustenance into nourishment for both body and spirit. She worked quietly to avoid waking the children, who were still adjusting to their new her movements in the kitchen gradually finding the rhythm that would, over time, make this space feel like home. As the eastern sky began to lighten, the scent of fresh bread and bacon drew first Matthew, then the workers, to the kitchen table, their expressions shifting from polite expectation to genuine surprise as they encountered food prepared with attention to both nutrition and pleasure. The silence that followed the first few bites was the highest compliment Anna's cooking had ever received, the wordless appreciation of people who had forgotten that meals could be more than fuel for the day's labor. Days settled into patterns as natural as sunrise, with Anna rising early to prepare meals that gradually evolved from simple fare to the more elaborate dishes that her Polish heritage and baker's training made possible. Mika proved invaluable as an assistant, her quick hands and intuitive understanding of cooking rhythms allowing Anna to attempt more ambitious projects than she had dared to hope. Stefan appointed himself guardian of the sourdough starter that Anna had smuggled from home in a small crock, his serious attention to its daily feeding schedule ensuring the continuation of flavors that connected their new life to the traditions they had left behind. Even Katya found her place in the kitchen's ecosystem, her job to set the long table with careful precision becoming a point of pride that transformed necessity into ceremony. Matthew watched these domestic developments with the quiet satisfaction of a man seeing his gamble pay dividends he hadn't known enough to expect. The first letter from their old town arrived on a Tuesday, its familiar handwriting causing Anna's hands to tremble as she recognized the script of Mrs. Kowalski, her former landlady's sister, who had promised to keep them informed of developments they had left behind. The news it contained struck like winter wind. Their former bakery building had been demolished to make way for a new grain elevator, erasing even the physical memory of the life they had built and lost. Anna read the letter twice before folding it carefully away, her heart processing not grief for what was gone but gratitude for having escaped before they could watch their dreams crumble into literal rubble. That evening, as she served dinner to the ranch workers, Anna noticed how the kitchen had begun to feel less like foreign territory and more like space that belonged to her family. The familiar sounds of her children's voices mixing with the men's conversation to create something that resembled the contentment she had almost forgotten was possible. October brought the end of harvest season, and with it a fundamental shift in the ranch's rhythm, as temporary workers departed for winter employment elsewhere, and the permanent crew settled into the quieter routines of equipment maintenance and preparation for the following year. Anna found herself cooking for fewer people but caring more deeply about the comfort and satisfaction of those who remained, her investment in their daily well-being reflecting a growing sense that Golden Wheat Ranch had become not just employment, but something approaching home. Matthew's evening visits to the kitchen, ostensibly to discuss the next day's meal planning, had evolved into longer conversations about everything from child-rearing philosophy to memories of Polish baking traditions that Anna's grandmother had carried across the ocean. When Mika commented, with the devastating perception of adolescence, that Mr. Sullivan smiles different now when he looks at Mama, Anna felt her heart perform the same rising motion she associated with perfectly timed bread dough, expanding with possibility, even as she cautioned herself against hoping for more than steady work and secure shelter. November's first storm tested both the ranch's winter preparations and the stability of relationships, still finding their footing on uncertain ground. Anna watched from the kitchen window as Matthew and his men worked through driving snow to ensure the safety of livestock and equipment, their coordinated efforts revealing the deep trust and competence that had made Golden Wheat Ranch prosperous even in difficult seasons. When they returned to the house, snow-covered and exhausted, Anna had prepared not just hot food but the kind of welcoming warmth that transformed necessary shelter into genuine sanctuary. As the men shed their heavy coats and settled around the kitchen table, their conversation, mixing practical assessments of storm damage with gentler observations about the comfort of coming home to warm light and good food, Anna realized that she had inadvertently created something she hadn't known she was capable of. A space where hardworking people could rest and be restored. The realization carried both satisfaction and responsibility, and she wondered if Matthew understood that her contribution to the ranch extended far beyond the preparation of meals. The children's adaptation to ranch life unfolded with the resilient creativity that Anna had learned to expect from young souls faced with necessary change. Mika had appointed herself unofficial teacher to Stefan and Katya, organizing lessons around the kitchen table that incorporated both traditional schoolbook subjects and the practical education that ranch life provided naturally. Stefan's mechanical curiosity found outlet in helping Matthew maintain equipment, his small hands proving useful for reaching into machinery that required adjustment and cleaning. Little Katya had adopted a barn cat named Biscuit, their mutual devotion providing her with the kind of uncomplicated friendship that helped ease the transition from town life to the vast spaces and the different rhythms of ranch existence. Watching her children discover confidence and competence in their new environment, Anna felt the deep satisfaction of a mother who had made the right choice under impossible circumstances, even as she remained aware that their security depended entirely on Matthew's continued satisfaction with their presence. Christmas preparations at Golden Wheat Ranch took on a significance that surprised everyone involved, as Anna's traditions combined with Matthew's resources to create celebrations more elaborate than anyone had experienced in years. The kitchen became workshop as well as culinary center, with Anna teaching the children to create the intricate Polish pastries and decorated breads that had marked holiday seasons in their old life. Matthew contributed by arranging for special ingredients, imported vanilla, real chocolate, spices that elevated simple desserts into memorable treats, and, by carving wooden toys for the children with the patient skill of someone who understood that small gestures could carry enormous meaning. The ranch workers, initially awkward about participating in family festivities, gradually allowed themselves to be drawn into the warm chaos of cookie decorating and carol singing, their bachelor existence enriched by the simple presence of children and the domestic magic that Anna brought to every ordinary moment. When Matthew presented Anna with a leather-bound notebook for recording her recipes, explaining that he hoped future generations would benefit from the culinary wisdom she was bringing to the ranch, Anna felt the ground beneath their temporary arrangement shifting toward something more permanent and precious. January brought visitors that shattered the winter peace like stones thrown through glass windows, as two men in formal coats appeared at the ranch house door, carrying official documents and expressions of bureaucratic determination. Anna's heart sank as she recognized the species of trouble they represented: creditors who had tracked her across state lines, men whose persistence in pursuing old debts threatened to destroy the new stability her family had finally achieved. They spoke in legal language about obligations and garnishments, their papers bearing official seals that could transform security into seizure, with the authority of distant courts and binding contracts. Matthew listened to their demands with the controlled stillness that Anna had learned to recognize as his response to serious challenges, his questions precise and his manner carefully neutral as he gathered information about the true extent of their legal power. As the men departed with promises to return within the week for resolution, Anna felt the familiar weight of desperation settling over her shoulders like a coat she had hoped never to wear again. The kitchen that had become sanctuary now felt like a stage for painful conversations, as Anna explained to Matthew the full extent of the financial obligations that had pursued her from town to town like persistent shadows. Her late husband's medical expenses, accumulated during his final illness, had been secured by guarantees that made Anna personally responsible for debts that exceeded any possible means of repayment. The bakery's failure had eliminated her ability to service those obligations, but not the legal requirement to satisfy them eventually. Matthew listened without judgment to details that exposed the complete vulnerability of her position. His questions focused on practical solutions rather than recrimination about past decisions or incomplete honesty. When he asked, simply, "What do you need?" Anna felt tears that had been held back by pride and determination finally spill over, because the question implied partnership in solving problems rather than abandonment in the face of impossible difficulties. For the first time since Joseph's death, Anna allowed herself to consider that she might not have to face every challenge alone. Matthew's solution revealed both the pragmatic generosity and the careful planning that had made him successful in an unpredictable business where seasonal variations could destroy the unwary. He proposed a formal partnership that would make Anna's position at the ranch permanent and legally protected, with her culinary contributions recognized as essential services worthy of both compensation and security. The arrangement would include assumption of her outstanding debts in exchange for a commitment to remain at the ranch for a minimum of 5 years, with the option to extend the partnership indefinitely by mutual agreement. Anna read the proposed contract with the careful attention of someone who had learned that legal documents could either provide sanctuary or create new forms of captivity. But Matthew's terms were generous beyond her most optimistic expectations. More than financial relief, the partnership offered something that Anna had not dared to hope for: recognition that her contributions to the ranch's success were valuable enough to justify long-term investment and mutual commitment. As she signed the papers, Anna whispered a prayer of gratitude for the unexpected kindness that had allowed her family to find not just shelter, but belonging. The creditor's return brought confrontation that tested every aspect of the fragile security Anna had constructed around her family's new life. They arrived with reinforcements, a local sheriff, and additional papers that suggested legal proceedings could make everyone's situation more complicated and expensive than simple debt settlement. Matthew met them in the ranch house parlor, his manner calm but firm as he presented the partnership documents that legally transferred Anna's obligations to the ranch's corporate structure. The lead creditor's response was swift and harsh, suggesting that such convenient arrangements were designed to cheat legitimate business interests and might not withstand serious legal challenge. Anna watched from the kitchen doorway as Matthew absorbed their threats without visible reaction. his stillness reminiscent of the moment before decisive action rather than passive acceptance of intimidation. When the men departed with promises of further legal action, Anna realized that Matthew's willingness to involve himself in their problems had potentially made him vulnerable to consequences that could threaten everything he had worked to build. Night conversations in the kitchen had become the space where Anna and Matthew shared the deeper concerns and hopes that daylight hours didn't allow time to explore. As they planned menus and discussed ranch business, their talk gradually expanded to include memories of past losses, dreams for future possibilities, and the careful assessment of feelings that had grown stronger than either had intended when their arrangement began. Matthew spoke of the loneliness that had made the ranch feel more like well-organized work than genuine home, while Anna described the weight of single parenthood and the fear that she would never again feel secure in any relationship that required trust in another person's commitment. These conversations unfolded with the patience of people who understood that some things could not be rushed. That genuine partnership, like properly risen bread, required time and favorable conditions to develop its full potential. As winter deepened and the kitchen became the ranch's warm heart, Anna began to recognize that Matthew's feelings toward her and the children had evolved beyond employer gratitude into something that might, with courage and honesty, become the foundation for a different kind of family. February brought news that changed everything. The creditors had indeed initiated legal proceedings, but their case was weaker than their threats had suggested. Matthew's attorney explained that the partnership documents were legally sound and that Anna's integration into the ranch's business structure provided legitimate protection against individual debt collection. More importantly, investigation had revealed that the original creditors had sold Anna's debt to collectors whose own legal standing was questionable, creating vulnerabilities in their case that could be exploited by competent legal defense. Anna listened to this development with the cautious hope of someone who had learned not to trust apparent good fortune too quickly. But Matthew's confident handling of the situation suggested that her family's security might finally rest on solid ground. When the attorney mentioned that successful defense against the collection efforts could result in damages being awarded to Anna, the possibility of actual financial recovery seemed too remarkable to believe. But Matthew's smile suggested that he had known such an outcome was possible from the beginning. Spring arrived with the drama appropriate to Kansas weather, as violent storms alternated with days of perfect clarity that made the ranch's vast landscape seem like a promise written in green wheat and blue sky. Anna's kitchen garden, planned during winter evenings and planted with Matthew's enthusiastic assistance, began producing the fresh vegetables and herbs that would enhance summer meals and provide preserves for the following winter. The children had grown visibly during their months at the ranch, their faces tanned and their bodies stronger from outdoor work and better nutrition than their previous life had provided. Mika had begun helping Matthew with bookkeeping, her quick mind and careful attention to detail making her valuable in ways that justified serious conversations about her future education and opportunities. Stefan's mechanical aptitude had earned him genuine responsibility for equipment maintenance, while Katya's friendship with the ranch animals had evolved into informal veterinary assistance that impressed even the most experienced hands. Watching her children develop competence and confidence in their new environment, Anna felt the deep satisfaction of a mother who had successfully guided her family through dangerous transition into secure territory. The legal resolution came with spring's first truly warm day, as Matthew's attorney arrived with documents that eliminated Anna's debt obligations entirely and awarded damages sufficient to provide a small but significant nest egg for her family's future security. The creditor's case had collapsed under scrutiny, their collection methods proving questionable enough to justify sanctions that would prevent future harassment. Anna read the settlement papers with the careful attention of someone who had learned to examine every detail of legal documents, but the language was clear. Her family's financial obligations to their past had been permanently resolved. Matthew's celebration was quiet but genuine. His satisfaction clearly derived as much from Anna's relief as from the successful resolution of a problem that had threatened their partnership. As they shared the news with the children that evening, Anna realized that the victory represented more than financial freedom, marked the moment when their new life stopped being temporary refuge and became permanent home. The arrival of Matthew's sister Elizabeth from Colorado brought both welcome support and unexpected complications, as her visit coincided with increasing speculation among the ranch hands about the exact nature of Matthew's relationship with Anna. Elizabeth proved immediately valuable in helping Anna understand the social expectations and potential challenges of a single woman managing a household in a conservative rural community. Her advice, practical rather than judgmental. She also brought news from the wider family network. Matthew's elderly parents hoped to meet Anna and the children. Relatives in Denver had heard rumors about the ranch's new domestic arrangements, and everyone was curious about developments that might affect the family's future stability. Anna appreciated Elizabeth's straightforward manner and her obvious affection for Matthew, but she also recognized that their growing relationship was now subject to evaluation by people whose opinions could influence its development. When Elizabeth offered to help Anna navigate the social complexities of rural courtship protocols, Anna realized that her feelings for Matthew had become obvious enough to require either formal acknowledgement or careful concealment. Summer brought the ranch's busiest season, with expanded operations requiring meals for 30 workers and coordination that tested every aspect of Anna's organizational abilities. The kitchen became command center as well as food preparation area, with Anna managing supply deliveries, work schedules, and the complex logistics of feeding large numbers of people with varying dietary needs and preferences. Her Polish baking expertise proved especially valuable as she developed bread recipes that could be produced in sufficient quantities while maintaining the quality that had made her reputation. Matthew's support during this demanding period took practical forms, hiring additional kitchen help, upgrading equipment, ensuring that Anna's workload remained manageable despite increased responsibilities. But Anna noticed deeper changes in his attention to her well-being. His concern about her fatigue, his quiet satisfaction when visitors praised the meals she provided. These small gestures accumulated into unmistakable evidence that Matthew's feelings toward her had developed beyond professional appreciation into personal devotion that was becoming increasingly difficult for either of them to ignore or disguise. The crisis arrived, without warning, on a scorching July afternoon, when a kitchen fire threatened to destroy not just the house, but Anna's confidence in her ability to manage the responsibilities that had become central to the ranch's operation. Grease ignited while she was managing multiple cooking tasks simultaneously, flames spreading faster than her ability to control them, despite years of experience with temperamental stoves and unpredictable equipment. Matthew and the workers responded quickly to contain the fire before serious damage occurred, but Anna's composure collapsed as she contemplated how close she had come to destroying the home and livelihood that had become precious beyond her ability to express. As Matthew helped her assess the damage, minimal structural harm but significant disruption to meal schedules and kitchen organization, Anna broke down with the delayed reaction of someone who had finally confronted the true weight of her responsibilities. Her tears were not just about the fire, but about the accumulated pressure of trying to prove herself worthy of the security and affection that had transformed her family's existence. And Matthew's response revealed the depth of his feelings as he gathered her into his arms with the protective tenderness of someone who loved her beyond any practical considerations. Recovery from the kitchen fire became an opportunity for Anna to recognize how completely the ranch community had embraced her family as permanent members rather than temporary employees. Workers volunteered their free time to help repair and improve the kitchen facilities, their contributions including skills and materials that exceeded simple obligation to assist a colleague in difficulty. Elizabeth extended her visit to provide additional help during the rebuilding process, her presence allowing Anna to rest and recover confidence while ensuring that meals continued to meet everyone's expectations. The children threw themselves into helpful activities with enthusiasm that revealed how deeply they had internalized the ranch as their true home, their investment in restoration efforts complete and unquestioning. Most significantly, Matthew's behavior during the crisis eliminated any remaining doubt about his personal commitment to Anna's welfare, his tenderness and protection extending beyond her professional value to encompass genuine care for her emotional recovery and future security. As the kitchen returned to full operation with improvements that made it more efficient and safer than before, Anna recognized that the fire had paradoxically strengthened rather than threatened the bonds that held their extended family together. the transformative moment arrived not as dramatic revelation but as quiet recognition during an ordinary evening in late summer, as Anna worked alongside Matthew to plan the following day's meals and found herself unable to imagine any future that did not include his steady presence and gentle strength. The conversation that followed was halting and careful, both of them aware that words spoken could not be unsaid and decisions made would affect not just their own lives but the welfare of three children who had learned to trust that adults could provide security and love. Matthew's declaration of his feelings was simple and direct. He loved Anna beyond any practical considerations, wanted to marry her if she could accept him, and hoped to become father to her children in more than just household arrangements. Anna's response came from a heart that had healed enough to risk genuine vulnerability. She loved him too, completely and without reservation, but feared that her past failures and current limitations might not prove sufficient foundation for the kind of marriage he deserved. Their mutual tears that evening were not grief, but relief, the profound comfort of finally acknowledging feelings that had grown too strong to contain, too precious to risk, too essential to deny any longer. September marked both the harvest season and Anna's final step into full belonging at Golden Wheat Ranch. While managing crews and preparing her wedding, she marveled at the transformation from widow and refugee to partner and wife. The children embraced Matthew's proposal eagerly, their joy reflected in planning, decorations, and foods that honored both Polish and ranch traditions. With Elizabeth's help coordinating logistics, Anna moved between kitchen duties and future dreams. Realizing her family's survival had grown into lasting security and a new home, the wedding revealed how completely Inez's family had been embraced by the ranch community. Workers contributed labor and resources, and the parlor was prepared for vows witnessed by those who had seen love grow through hardship and ordinary labor. Wearing her grandmother's preserved dress, Anna joined Matthew in exchanging rings forged from ranch metals, symbols of a life built from shared work and respect. The celebration blended Polish recipes with American dishes, children's confidence with workers' gratitude, and Anna's relief with joy at finally finding permanence in love and home. Seasons passed, proving their marriage strong and their ranch a model of success. Anna expanded beyond the kitchen into business ventures. Matthew's parents welcomed her wholeheartedly, and the children thrived. Mika excelling in studies, Stefan in mechanics, and Katya in school. Family and community grew together through holidays and daily routines, until Anna could stand in her kitchen at dawn, whispering gratitude for second chances and for the God who had carried her from loss to abundance, from fear to faith, into a home where love and work blended into enduring blessing.